Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Unbound. So, I wanted to make this because no tutorial exists in the game right now, and I want to make sure that everybody who I'm giving the beta to knows what's going on and can figure out how everything works. So, I'm going to make this little mini tutorial as fast as possible to introduce you to how the game works. I'm going to cover first these 5 screens at the bottom, what goes on in each one. Then I'll cover making decks and making the cards themselves, and then finally the actual gameplay. So to start with these 5 buttons, you actually only need to worry about 3 of them right now. This one all the way on the left is the shop, which is currently under construction, and same with the social page. So we're only going to be worrying about this middle button, which is the home screen, and where you actually start playing games. The search button, which is used to search for either decks or cards, and this includes both decks that you've made and decks that other people have made. And then finally this page, where you can look at the decks that you own, as well as your selected cards that make up your hand that you're going to be using, and editing everything in there, as well as creating decks yourself. So, last thing I want to cover before I go over how to actually make decks is up here, you'll see your profile. Okay, so going into this page, this is going to be mainly where you can view your decks and where you can create or edit them. So if you want to create a new deck, that's this button right here, and it'll bring up this form where you can add everything you need to. I don't want to go into too much detail. I kind of want you to figure it out on your own. Then if we go into editing a deck that actually exists, I'm going to go into this one because I've made it myself. I'm going to be an editor in this deck, and pulling it up, you'll be able to see the different cards that you have as well as what you have selected. So if I want to edit the deck itself, that's going to be this button up here, which will bring up a similar menu to the one you just saw. This button is what you use to create new cards. I'll get into that in a second. And this final button is what you use to select this deck as the active deck that you're going to be using to play games with. And this button is to remove this deck from your saved decks, and this is to favorite it. I'll cover the cards themselves now, going over just with this example. Your card is going to be assigned a class, which you can give it based on the available classes for your deck, as well as a name, a health, and then either 1 or 2 attacks, which do varying things, and each have their own descriptions. So if you want to make a card from scratch, you're going to go here, you're going to select an image from your device, pick from the available classes which one you want, give it a name, give it a health, and then pick your attack. Now, all of the different options that you have for what attacks do are listed out here with descriptions. I'll cover them briefly, with attacks being able to be either single target everybody, or a multi-target attack, which targets the given number of times. Here you can add the description for your attack, and here you can pick from the available effects what you want your attack to do. You have these options, or just giving it no effect. The cost is going to be how many tokens is going to cost to use, and the damage is going to be applied to every single target that your attack targets. And that's the gist of making the cards themselves. Anytime you make a card, you'll be able to edit it just by going in here and editing your card, and it will bring up a similar screen where you can edit and then save the changes for the card that you make. The last thing I really should cover on this page are what this means, this section. So when you play the game, you're going to be dealt a random selection of 5 cards from the deck that you're using. Those 5 cards are going to be selected from these active cards that you've picked. So for larger decks, you're going to have to set a deck of 10 cards, but for this deck, while it's still small, I just need those 5. However, if I go back into something like the starter deck, which has a lot more cards in it, you're going to be able to see that I've selected 10 cards from this deck, and whenever I play a game, I'll be playing with a random selection of 5 cards from these 10 cards that I've picked. So as your decks grow to be dozens of cards, you'll have to make decisions on who you want to include in your deck. The last thing I ought to cover on the homepage is the other way that you can select what deck you're going to be using, and that's through this right here, which will bring up your different decks and allow you to pick one and set it as your active deck. Now, for this tutorial, I'm going to go back and I'm going to play the beginning of one game with the starter deck. Right now, before multiplayer exists, the only mode that you'll be able to use is this one with the bot, and we'll jump right into it. At the beginning of the game, you're going to see that both players are given 2 cards, and there's a pot of coins in the middle, or tokens. These tokens are what you're going to be using to play your attacks. And the last thing you'll notice about the setup is that the player which is going second is going to be automatically given 1 token on their 2 starting cards to make up for going second in the game. There's going to be a few different things which you can do on this screen during your turn. You're going to be able to take coins from the middle and give them to your cards. You're going to be able to replenish coins into the center, replenishing 5. You're going to be able to pick a card from your hand or play a card into your play area, or to use one of the attacks that your cards have. Each of these actions costs 1 action, and you'll have 5 that you're able to do on each turn. And the object of the game is to get rid of your opponent's 5 cards before they get rid of yours, and the last player standing wins. I think the first thing that I'll do is I'm going to pick a new card and see what it gives me. You know what? I really like Milo the Space Dog, so as my second action, I'm going to play him. Now I have 3 actions left, and I know that he has an attack that costs 2. So I'm going to take 2 coins as my 3rd and 4th action and give them to him. And then as my 5th and final action for the turn, I'm going to use this attack to target both of the cards in the opponent's hand. And it will do the damage that it does, and it will give those cards the effect that is written on the attack. And finally, once my turn is over, you'll see that the last button highlighted is to end the turn. And when I end the turn, it is now the bot's turn, and the bot will make its attacks. Once it's back to your turn, if you ever want to quit a game early, simply quit and confirm. Thank you for watching, and have fun.